All right, so we've been talking backstage. As I mentioned, I have 4 kids, and I drive a minivan, and so we've been trying to be cooler. And my kids are all in on the Rivian. We've test driven the Rivian, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet, so maybe you'll convince me.
Help you out, yeah, we would love to.
The first time I saw a Rivian was the day Jeff Bezos launched into space. We were in Van Horn, Texas, and there was like a pack of Rivians in 2021. And you obviously have a partnership with Amazon. But talk to me about the journey sort of from then to now. You've got the SUV, the pickup, you've got the R2 and R3 coming out. Give us the roadmap.
Yes, we launched
yeah,
there you go. We launched our first product in 2021, end of 2021 with the flagship products R1T, R1S. And so I think you saw those right before we launched. We then launched a commercial van in partnership with Amazon. So if you see any of the electric vans driving around here, those are actually designed and built by us. And then we made a big update to the R1 platform last year where we redid all the network architecture, the ECU topology, massive rebuild of our perception stack, a lot more compute. But what we're most excited about right now is we're about to launch a product we call R2. And it precedes a product we call R3. But the R2, R3 sibling combination is a set of much lower priced vehicles, with R2 being a 5-passenger SUV and then R3 being more of a crossover. But I've never been as excited as I am about a product as I feel about this vehicle with R2. It is so cool, the combination of packaging, the look, the performance, the capability. So if you don't buy an R1, I have to get you in an R2.
I feel like we live in like an increasing Rivian land. You know, I live in the East Bay and the North. Rivians are everywhere. They're all over Tahoe. How much is it really picking up in, you know, Middle America, in Texas? Like, how are you going to get folks to, you know, not buy the Ford F-150 and buy the Rivian?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly in the Bay Area or in Southern California or Seattle. You see Rivians everywhere, which is awesome. My kids and I used to, on the drive to school, they would count how many Rivians they saw. And it's like a 10-mile drive. And so 2 years ago, you would count a few. And now it's sort of like 22, 23. So it's been really remarkable seeing that. But, you know, as we look across the U.S., the adoption has been strong. So it really scales with population. So big cities like Chicago or, you know, you mentioned Texas, Austin, Houston, Dallas, these are also really big markets for us. And what's been amazing and was the goal was that the Rivian brand and of course the product is connecting with, you know, non-EV buyers. It's pulling, most of our customers have never owned an EV before. And it's pulling people in that come from a broad spectrum of backgrounds. Importantly, we have Republicans that love Rivians, we have Democrats that love Rivians, and the consistency of how we've messaged our brand, messaged what we stand for, this idea of the products both enabling and inspiring people to go, you know, go skiing, to go do the kinds of things you want to take photographs of, has really connected with a broad cross-section of the United States.
What do you think of the folks who have those bumper stickers on their Teslas who say, I bought this before Elon went crazy? Has that been helpful to you?
We've seen, yeah, we certainly see some more of those. I saw a sticker there today that says, I identify as a Rivian. Which is funny.
That's good, that's good. Well, I was planning to ask you how you felt about your competitor being so close to the president, but over the last 24, 48 hours, I feel like I need to be asking, like, what do you think about the Elon Trump breakup? Is that, like, good for you?
I don't know. Yeah, it's, oh, geez. Yeah, that's a good one.
Really, though, I mean...
It's dynamic, let's say that.
It's dynamic.
Yeah, it looks, it's interesting.
He's certainly been lobbying for certain things like rolling back credits and loans that actually would be really important to you. You're building new plants. I mean, how are you liaising with the Trump administration? And are you at all concerned about the things that he has been pushing for? Or maybe less concerned?
Yeah, it's a fun question. We, you know, when we take a big step back and you look at what the administration is pushing for, you know, I think it's easy to get caught into the day-to-day of which tariffs are moving which way, and some of the language that's used around electric vehicles. But really, the administration wants to see investment in U.S. technology, investment in U.S. jobs. And so we have, you know, more than 15,000 employees in the United States. We highly vertically integrated. We built a technology stack that's world-class. In fact, that technology stack on the software and electronics side underpins a $5.8 billion software licensing deal that we did with Volkswagen last year. So it's, I think it's the largest software licensing deal in the history of the automotive industry. And then we're building our products, including all the components that go into them here in the United States. We have a plant in Illinois now, and as you said, we're building a very large production facility in Georgia, which is a swing state. So I think that, certainly, I think there's some changes around like incentives for consumers that, are not great in the short term, but in the long term, you're building a U.S. company, building U.S. technology, and that's consistent. So in all of our discussions with the administration, we try to focus on that part of it.
So Rivian had the hottest IPO of the year a few years back. The stock hasn't returned to that sort of initial glory. Are you annoyed that Rivian doesn't trade like a tech company, but Tesla does?
Yeah. I think for us, we went public, and immediately following our IPO, we had the big challenge of a supply chain crisis. Our ramp didn't go as quickly as we'd hoped. And there's been a lot of focus on the much shorter term from investors around what's our path to profitability, what's our path to positive free cash flow. And so in the last 2 quarters, we've shown a lot of progress. So in Q1, we had $206 million of gross profit, positive gross profit, which is great. But I think demonstrating that the business can be self-propelling, it can fund itself through the profits of the products has been really important. But we've invested so much on the tech stack that I think this will really serve as a big unlock once some of the overhang of concerns around cash or profitability starts to disappear. And at the end of the day, the stock market's not always logical. It's incredibly volatile. But in the long term, it tends to get things right. So as long as we keep executing, you said it, but the products resonate extremely well with consumers. So the last 2 years in a row, Consumer Reports does this brand survey. This isn't us, this is Consumer Reports. And they look at brand satisfaction, and we've been by far the highest level of brand satisfaction amongst any car company for the last 2 years in a row by like a significant amount, with the highest rate of repurchase by like 15%. So we love that. We have the market share leading product with the R1S. It's about 35% market share in its category. So if we can take that brand success, that market share that we have, and translate that to a much bigger market with R2, continue to invest in our technology stack. We have a huge amount of focus on software, autonomy, AI. The rest will take care of itself. It may just take a little longer than we'd like, though.
Tariffs have been especially hard for hardware builders.
Yeah.
How have they impacted you? What does it mean for example, like your partnership with Volkswagen, your plans for the European market?
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs have been, in the long list of things I didn't expect to have happen. We have a daily stand-up meeting that looks at what changed in the last 24 hours around trade. And so, it's one of the things I say a lot is like when we think about trade and tariffs, I think often like we take almost an academic, like the world seems to take an academic economist view of what the economy looks like, which is, we're trading t-shirts and coffee cups. Like it's a really simple economy and production locations are really fungible and you can move things around really easily. But in really complex products, and in particular products that have these deep, long supply chains, like aerospace, like automotive, you can't move supply chains that quickly. And so for us, the challenge with the tariffs is we understand the intent of more content being produced in the US, but it's not something we can flip immediately. And so we have hundreds of suppliers who in turn have thousands of suppliers. Like take a headlight. A headlight looks like it's simple. We buy a headlight from a US supplier, but it has 5 tiers of suppliers with about 70 companies that participate in making that headlight. Much of the content comes from all over the world. So these are just really complex changes that are going to take months or years to implement production locations that reflect the policy.
Mm-hmm. The price point is still high for average people. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing to bring the cost down, but still, keep the safety standards, keep the quality standards?
Yeah, so our R1s, that's the R1S, the R1T, that's our flagship product. The average sale price of this is about $90,000. What we're launching with R2, it starts at $45,000. So this, again, it's a big market expander. The average price of a new car in the United States is around $49,000. And so with R2 coming in, starting at 45 and having a few different trims across that price range, puts us in a great spot to see a giant step in volume, which of course will be great for us as a business, but also really start to help us absorb some of the fixed costs of these very large engineering teams we built.
Mm-hmm. Charging anxiety is still very real. I felt it myself. Yeah. We test drove it to Tahoe. And also EVs have become this political football, especially in this administration.
A little bit, yeah.
Why is this so hard? And how far off is just not having to worry about charging? Like, we don't think about gas.
Yeah.
Like, when will that be the case?
Yeah.
For EVs?
If I were to go back in time 5, maybe 6 years, I would have wrongly predicted there would have been more investment into charging infrastructure. And I would have said, if we were sitting here in 2018, I would have said, there's going to be a bunch of investment that's going to create charging such that charging is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. And fast forward over the last couple of years, we haven't seen that happen. And so we took the decision to build our own charging network. And so there's 2 charging networks in the United States that have uptime, meaning when you show up, the chargers are working, greater than 99%. One of those is Tesla, and that's by far the largest network. It's a great network. And the other is what we call our Rivian Adventure network. Our Adventure network is about 4% the size of Tesla's network, so we're still building it. But amazingly, we believe our network, along with Tesla's, will be the 2 largest charging networks in the United States. And that will take time to build out, but you're starting to see them. You're going to start to see a lot more Rivian charging stations here in the Bay Area, but they're growing across the whole U.S.
You obviously have this relationship with Amazon. I'd love to get an update on that. And I know you and Jeff Bezos personally kind of hatched this deal.
Yeah.
What's sort of the status of your relationship now that he's, moved on in a way?
Yeah.
And he's backing a new company called Slate Auto.
Yeah, so Amazon's our largest shareholder, and they're a really deep partner. I referenced it before. We build commercial vans, and Amazon's our primary customer for those commercial vans. And just to give some scale to this, Amazon runs the largest centrally managed electric fleet in the world. So there's tens of thousands of these. You'll see them all over the place here. And so to build that and to put in place charging infrastructure to change the way that they ran their fleet as rapidly as they have has been, it's been something that required us to really be close with the Amazon ops team. And so I couldn't be happier with the nature of that relationship, and we're excited about what's to come. We're going to continue scaling that. As it pertains to Jeff, I've known Jeff for a while. He's been a great advisor and a great friend to me. Obviously he built one of the largest businesses in the world. So it's been really helpful to some of the questions you asked, navigating some of the volatility in the market. And I think importantly, navigating even things like share price and a phrase he uses all the time, which is you need to be comfortable being misunderstood. And so I look at our share price and we're really bullish on what we're building. We're really confident we're building. We do believe we're building a very large business that's going to produce many millions of cars. And it's okay that the market doesn't fully appreciate all the things we're doing today. But if we keep executing, we know it will.
So
that's been his guidance to me all along.
He's backing this company, Slate Auto. They're making a $20,000 electric pickup. Is he hedging his bets against you?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that happens as the tech world looks at the vehicle world, in tech, it's very often that you'll have 1 or 2 dominant players that emerge and control the entirety of a space or a segment. In automotive, it's very unlikely you'll have 1 or 2 car companies that dominate an entire market. Just to give this some scale, there's about 90 to 100 million cars sold every year. The largest car company in the world makes 10-ish million vehicles a year. And so we think there needs to be a handful of highly successful companies that are building many million units a year. And in the US, we have the extreme challenge that there's a lack of choice. So if you were to buy, I say this all the time, if you were to look to buy an electric vehicle at a price of under $50,000 today, you really don't have any choices. There's one really compelling set of choices with the Tesla Model 3, Model Y. And you see that manifest in they have extreme market share, 50-ish% market share. But it's just a reflection of there's not very many other options. And so because of that, electrification adoption in the United States is really asymptoted at around 8%, because there's only so many customers that want that form factor, that look, that brand. And for us to go from 8% to 50 or 60 or 70, even given how, how compelling the Tesla products are, customers want choice. They want more things. So I think it's great that there's more choices coming. I hope some of the large incumbent car companies help make compelling products. And part of our Volkswagen deal was that, which we said we can take our tech stack and help the second largest car company in the world create more compelling products across different brands, Porsche, Audi, of course, Volkswagen. And so that's the way we look at it.
Full self-driving has, made some advancements, especially more recently. You guys take a different approach than Tesla. Talk a little bit about that and just what the advent of AI potentially means for self-driving and car development in general.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend hours on this.
I know.
So I'll be quick.
We have 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
I will be very quick. Just in just a few seconds. If we look at what's happened in self-driving, there's really been two big phases of how we've looked at this from a technology point of view. So from, call it 2015 to maybe 2022, all the different self-driving efforts were essentially had a very similar architecture, which was a perception stack, so cameras and perhaps radars and LiDAR, but a perception stack that are identify and classify objects. Those objects that were identified and classified would then have vectors associated to them. So, velocity and acceleration, X, Y, and Z. And then those objects, along with the vectors, would be handed to what we call a planner. And the planner is a rules-based environment that was written by software developers that defined the rules of the world, essentially how you behave and how the other things on the road might behave, what are the trajectories likely to be. And the planner would then come up with, using these rules, how the vehicle should operate. And so it was limited around how it was programmed, and it was limited by the perception stack that was feeding into it. What happened that completely threw out and made everything that happened prior to 2022 irrelevant is the introduction of transformers and the way we now look at AI. And so the approach that now is absolutely undoubtedly going to win is what you may often hear called an end-to-end approach, where you have still a perception stack, but that perception stack creates an early fused view of the world, meaning the cameras provide raw information, maybe there's radars, maybe there's LiDARs, but a perception stack feeds into an early fused version of the world that's looked at through the lens of a large parameter, like multi-billion parameter foundation model that is trained through the data coming off the vehicles and the drivers in the vehicles acting as a participant in that training. And so this new approach requires very different things from the AV, Autonomous Vehicle 1.0. It requires a really large data flywheel. So you need to have a deployed fleet. You need to completely vertically control the perception stack. You need tons of inference on the vehicle to be able to do this real-time decisioning. And then you need to have a way to move all this data off the vehicle and then process it with GPUs offline to create this large parameter model. So all that said, we recognized that change was happening. And so I talked about a Gen 1 vehicle, which we launched with in 2021. That was the rules-based approach. And we now have our Gen 2 vehicles, which launched last summer. And that's entirely designed around AI. And so we're just starting to see, in Rivian's case, the strength of this data flywheel and the features and the capability that are about to continue to roll out through updates with this really AI-centric approach it's just remarkable. And the speed of progress is night and day compared to when we were trying to do this with software developers in a rules-based environment.
So last quick question, even though we're officially out of time. The valley of death is this so-called gap between scaling and developing an expensive product and then actually selling it. And I try not to mention him too often, but it's really hard in a conversation with you not to mention Elon Musk. He has called getting through the valley of death and starting an electric car company like staring into the abyss and eating glass. He famously slept on the factory floor. What are you doing to get out of the valley of death? Yeah. Where are you sleeping personally? Yeah.
Depends. Yeah, I mean, look, starting a car company is really tough. It's not easy. It takes billions of dollars of capital. You need thousands of engineers. You have a really complex supply chain. You have to produce vehicles at very high levels of quality. And today we're producing about 50,000 cars a year. As you say, you're starting to see them on the roads. But for us, that really big step of volume comes with R2. Today we've just got to the place finally where we're producing a positive gross profit, which is awesome. But to see where we start to produce billions of dollars of free cash flow, it's a business that benefits from, or I shouldn't even say benefits, it's needed to have a high level of volume, especially when you have a high degree of vertical integration and a really large engineering team to develop all the technology. So, the next year for us is a really critical year. I'd say it's the most exciting year since I started the company. And, I can't wait to see even more Rivians on the road with the launch of R2.